Everybody for tuning in to Coder Conversations. Once again, if you want to catch up on any previous episode, visit us at coderconvos.com or email us at coderconversations@gmail.com. I'm your host, Kevin.
And I'm Brian Russick, professional drummer, drum teacher based out of the Suffolk County, Long Island, New York area. If you'd like to book a lesson with me, I can be found at brianrussick.com.
And on today's show, we have the multi-talented Greer Davis, a creative professional and technologist. So yeah, your background is quite impressive. It's a mix of creativity as well as the more traditional tech jobs. So you've been a professional opera singer, an actor, and now you're doing voiceover work. Like, how do you transition from tech into all of these different things, and vice versa?
Right. So, well, I started off as an opera singer. I went into that in undergrad. I have an undergraduate and graduate degree in vocal performance in classical opera singing. I also did a lot of professional choir.
Oh, awesome.
And as you guys may know, that being in a classical music industry or any kind of performance industry can be a little bit inconsistent on the income. So I always had a second job, and my second job was always tech support. So that was, I could kind of come in and out of it. I worked for little companies that like maybe were seasonal, or I would do some other kind of like business operations stuff like here and there, or I would work, just sort of, it was always just like the job I had while I did my singing thing. Um, and I did that for 10 years, over 10 years. And I moved to New York to like, you know, really do it. I was in Chicago at the time. After graduate school, I moved to New York to like do all of the auditions and go be there so that I could, be around where all of most of the singers were, which is in New York City.
Right.
And I really did it. And then I got really burned out on it. I still, again, almost always had to have another job. Occasionally there were moments when, I made enough singing that I could just make a living, but not most of the time, I would say.
Yeah.
And in the opera world, people will say, "Oh, well, you're an opera singer. Do you sing at the Met?" No, I never sang at the Met. That doesn't mean I wasn't successful.
Yeah.
But most people who are singing, if they're singing opera, they are contracting with, by the show or by the festival and traveling to wherever that is. So I've performed in Milwaukee, in Minneapolis, in California, in Kansas, and lots in Chicago, some in New York, Vermont, like just all sort of random places. And
Nice.
the best case scenario when you're a successful opera singer is traveling about 95% of the time. And
Yeah.
I realized when I was about 32 that that is not what I wanted to do anymore.
That's the
And that
thing about
was
music. It's like you think, oh, yeah, I want to do this. I want to do this. But then you realize, oh,
right.
wait, the people who are
Yeah.
doing this full time are constantly on the road.
Yeah. And it's hard to have a family. It's hard to have a partner. It's hard to, I always tell this story. I had some really close friends of mine, um, and they were both successful opera singers and they got married. And in the first year they were married, they saw each other a grand total of, they counted 50 days in their
Wow.
entire first year. And I was like, that is a lot. And so, I decided, I'm going to take a year off of auditions. I'm gonna take some time off, and like the audition season is in December, like December, January in New York. If you don't have an agent, that's just like audition season. And so I was like, I'm gonna take a few months off. I'm gonna just skip this audition season. And then I never did it again. And it was fine. And I didn't have too many issues with that. I didn't miss it. It was honestly very refreshing. So I decided at that point that I was going to just be like, I always had these other jobs. I've always done a lot of business. I did a lot of, I'm good at software. I was always interested in it. It's always been fun for me to like learn new programs and, just sort of dig in. And so if I can't figure something out, I will mess around with it until I can. And then people start, like wherever I worked, people would come to me and be like, how do I do this? How do I do that?
Right.
And so that was, I started to really just start doing tech support for SaaS companies. And that was, I was like, I'm just going to focus on that. That's going to be my career now. And so I started doing that. And within a couple of years of stopping singing, I uh, started working at Mark 43, which was a we'll call it B2G, I guess, business to government software. So and I ran the tech support team. So I was the first support hire, and then I built that team from then on. And so as we grew as a company, I had, tiered support. We did all of the customer education until finally they actually got a customer education team, and that was separate. But we did all the customer education, all the documentation, all of the knowledge management, all of the internal training. We did a lot of internal training. This is where learning and development comes in later. Onboarding. I onboarded a lot of people. And so, I was there for almost 8 years, I think. And it was a great experience. And I, I became like a director. I was like, senior management at this, tech company, and I moved to another company briefly for about a year after. They did layoffs in the big sort of wave in, was it 2022, 23? There were
Right.
lots of layoffs. So I actually had to, when I was doing learning and development towards the end, I actually had to do the layoffs as part of the people team, if you're
Oh
in tech.
no.
So like I had to actually lay off a bunch of people, and then I got my turn about 6 months after that. So but it was a good place at the time. And I learned a lot. I learned from a ton of amazingly talented uh, technically adept individuals, and I learned so much about business and how to do it and how not to do it. And throughout all of that, I was onboarding a lot of people. We were doing a lot of documentation, and as part of documentation, if you're doing software and you're updating your code all the time, and you're getting new features, and you're getting, maybe you're acquiring a company that now becomes part of your feature set. You have to create so much content. You have to write so much stuff. Your users don't know what they're doing. And um, I think this is sort of endemic of a lot of tech companies, is they're not really good at paying attention to the customers they have on board already. So they're not necessarily educating those current customers. Are always worried about, like, onboarding those new people, getting those new clients, paying basically. And then they
Yeah.
sort of fall away. And so it came to the support team. Is like, if I don't start like educating these current customers and like paying attention to them a little more, it just creates more work for my team. So I guess you could say I was lazy. I didn't want to do extra work, so I did the work up front. And I think that in general, I think that tends to be a better client experience anyway, where somebody's like, here's the information you need, rather than, you have a problem now you have to reach out to the support team. So
Right, 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 right.
so I did a lot of tech writing, like technical writing. I also had the technical writer team on my team, so it was technical writers, customer education, um, multi-tiered support. And we did a lot of videos, because like, here's a how-to. A lot of people learn better with videos. A lot of people learn better with text. So I, like, as I was starting to do all of this knowledge building, I was making these videos, and people were like, you need to voice them over. And I was like, well, I'll just do it. And so I did that. And I don't know if, like, it certainly wasn't the most amazing audio or anything, but it got the job done. And
Right.
so I always really enjoyed that. And so we had that. And as I'm sort of learning about, how people learn, okay, well, this person learns really well watching videos. This person really learns well, you know, um, just reading it. This person learns better with like pictures, like annotated, screenshots or whatever it is. And those are all valid and good ways to learn, and you need to have all of those. You can't just have one way and say, "Hey, this is it. This is all we got. We only got videos." I can't tell you, weirdly, I'm not a video watcher. I don't wanna
Yeah.
watch a video on how to do something. I'm like, "Just I need the text. Just show me the text and a picture, please. I don't wanna watch a video." Um,
Right.
so but other people are not that way, and so you have to, like, sort of embrace that that's the case. And so as part of my job, and I'm sorry, I'm talking so much, but as part of my job as the director of technical support, um, uh, we had to do a lot of onboarding. We had to do a lot of, um, the team was growing. Um, there was a lot of attrition, but for good reasons, not because it was a terrible team to work for, but because it was an awesome team to work for. I had a really high retention rate for my employees.
Yeah.
Um, but then other teams would steal them because they were really great. So
Oh, wow.
I wanted them to do well. Of course, that's I think like career development is as like a manager was really important to me. I'm like, I want people to feel like they're progressing, and they did progress, and that was great. But that meant I always had to be replacing my tier one team. Um,
Okay.
so because the ramp up rate for the products that we were offering was really complicated. It was a field that most people had no idea about. People don't know about emergency dispatch software. That's not a thing that people use who like, are experienced customer support or like tech support people. They know how to learn it, but like being able to like really get them on board and understand where the customer is coming from, understand our user base, understand where, you know, um, like what happens. We had two or three major products that our customers were using, and we were like sort of tier three. So like the end users would go to their admins and their admins would come to us. And so that was like, so it's pretty technical. And so I came up with this whole program to like onboard people and like put them in different places after, they'd be minimum 6 months in tier one, and then they could like start either specializing in one of the products and being more of a product specialist, tier two or tier three.
So they
Some of
had
them became
options.
engineers. Yeah,
They
so they
had
had lots of
options.
options, so they could
Yeah.
like that was also very attractive when you're like, "Hey, we need tier 1 tech support." That's a very sad job posting to make. You get a lot of uh, applicants, but they're not always great. It's very hard to get the right set of people. So
Yeah.
being able to offer that was really great. And so like it was really successful. I had a really great retention rate. I have people who still work there, and I hired them in 2017. And so it's like I like that. I like that a lot about um my being able to like help further their career. And so that is how I got into learning and development, is because of that work that I did on the support team and Mark 43, was being able to like build these programs and really specifically work towards the skills that people didn't have, or giving them the opportunities that they needed to move forward. And so when I was kind of getting burned out on sort of support in general in my own like career
Right.
life, and so I had our COO at the time. He was like, "We need a learning and development team. We've got like our onboarding is kind of a mess." We were hiring like uh we were doing hiring classes of like 30 people every 2 weeks. And so
Wow.
it was really, really intense.
It
For a
was like
small company, that's
really it was really ramping up, in other words.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It was really
Yeah.
ramping up. So I started doing that, and yeah, and that was just sort of how I kind of got into learning development for a bit. But it is it doesn't seem related, but it really was for what I happened to be doing. And then I moved to briefly to another company for about a year, where I was basically doing the same thing. We had an offshore support team. Well, offshore, it was like they were it's all global. Um, and it was less of a technical product, so it was a bit of a different experience. But I did a lot of customer education um, at that particular place, and so that was another place where I was making all of the training videos. I was doing like live trainings. Really tried to push people towards the videos and like being able to do more of like an e-learning style. um, situation. So yeah, and
So you
then
were really
mhm.
working as a creative, it sounds like.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, I created a lot of content in terms of technical writing and trading videos. It sounds like kind of a boring creative, but it was I enjoyed it. I enjoyed being able to like figure things out, and I liked being the one that people could come to and say, "Hey, how do I do this?" And if I didn't know the
Right.
answer, I'd be like, "Well, I need to know. I need to know that now." So, and it was like it would always go beyond the product too. So like both of the companies that I worked in were like very heavily regulated. So like a lot of compliance stuff,
I
and
see.
so there's a lot of compliance layer on top of all of the things that I was writing about. And so when I unfortunately got laid off from there was another round of layoffs from my second place, or the last
Okay.
place that I was at. And it was just last year actually. And it was going right into the holidays. And so I was like, well, I was trying to find another job, and it's been, the last year has been a really rough market. And I was like kind of burnt out. I did, my sitting there every day doing LinkedIn, doing um, a million applications, trying to network. And in the meantime, I was like, what? I always really liked doing the voiceover things for these various companies. I also did all the phone tree stuff. So it's like when you're in a support team, you've got a phone system, you have to learn how to do all of the IVR, and like that can be kind of complicated, and knowing all the parts of that. So I've done a ton of IVR stuff as well, just because I was the one who set it up. And I was like, well, somebody's got to do that, right? And then I kind of saw a
Yeah.
sign for I saw an ad for Fiverr, and I was like, could I do that on Fiverr? So like it's just sort of came into it. And then uh but yeah, like right now I'm mainly they have like platforms that you can basically, it's like job boards that you basically can submit auditions. There's a couple different places, but obviously the goal is to move off of that and just have an agent or be able um, to do that. So I really enjoy honestly doing. I do a lot of audiobooks, and so I've been really enjoying that. It's like kind of getting back into the acting. Not kind of. It is very much acting. It's like audio
Yeah.
drama, really.
That,
So
that sounds it sounds like a lot of fun.
yeah, it's great. It's funny when I've got my little curtains here that go all around my desk, and I sit here and um, shout into the very dramatic things into my microphone, and um, and have and my kids are like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Just don't worry about it. It's fine." But
I'm just working. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I'm just working. So yeah, so that's kind of how I've run the gamut there. So it makes sense if you draw the line, but yeah, on paper it is a little bit like, "What?"
Right, what is she doing again? Yeah.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah, it's really interesting how like an unrelated opportunity can just open a door that you never expect, and this technology, it kind of brought you right back into the creative world.
Mhm.
Is this creative world something that you plan on staying in, or do you kind of plan like on doing something how you did in your early career, where okay, the creative work is the passion job, but you also have a second
Mm.
job on the side?
I hope not to have the second job. I have to say, because I had all of now the business experience, I know a lot more about how to be self-employed now than I did when I was trying to be a singer, if that makes any sense. I'm also just older, so like that helps. And I really enjoy being my own boss. And of course there that comes, with pros and cons. But I
Sure, sure.
really like, I really I would this is awesome for me. Like this, I've never had so much fun. I can't even imagine trying to go back to um um like I hate calling this a regular job, a corporate job, a tech sector job. That doesn't mean I didn't love it at the time either. I just think that it was what I needed, and now I need this. And uh, I think the only reason I would go back to that is if it was really financially not viable to continue doing voiceover. But luckily, it continues to, I get more gigs and better paying gigs and gigs that I don't have to pay fees for, which sounds very weird, but like that's kind of how these platforms work. They take a cut of your payment, but then they also guarantee the payment. So what can happen is if you're contracting with someone and you don't know them really well, or you don't, if they don't have a reputation, you can do work for them and then they just don't pay you, which is, that's one of the cons of being, um, self-employed, in a creative field where you're just sort of relying on people's honesty in certain situations. So, um, yeah, eventually I would love to just be doing audiobooks and commercials.
Yeah.
Like, actually, it's funny to I just I am doing a gig right now where it's e-learning. So it's very much in the scope of what I had already been doing. It's just the topic is different. So like this one is medical learning. Like, it's for middle schoolers to learn about diabetes. And
Oh,
then,
wow.
yeah, so and then I've done one for I did um, a voiceover for a medical device that was intended that the audience was doctors and like showing them how to do the surgery with this device, and I had to say all the medical terms and pronounce them correctly, and this is a whole like it's always something different. It's
That
very
sounds
fun.
hard.
Um,
Yeah,
it
it
took
sounds
me
kind of difficult.
it was only a 5-minute video, and it took me longer than I would like to admit to get all of the words pronounced
Yeah.
correctly.
Well, that's the thing with legal or medical, there's a lot of big words, and so, yeah, I can
Yeah,
imagine.
yeah, and I do read a lot, so I know, I'm actually familiar with some of them, but, like, even just, like, it's a lot of it is not something that you come across, like medication names. Like, I was just luckily Googling is pretty good, and most clients are very good about, telling you what the pronunciation is, but just getting it,
Right.
like saying it so that it sounds um, natural that's the hardest part, probably.
So I know some audiobooks, they're probably like more performative. You're able to express
Hmm.
more of your creative side, whereas
Hmm.
other ones are more informative, where you're just like recanting facts. Of the two, like which one do you find yourself most at home at?
Oh, 100% fiction. I love doing the fiction stuff. So I would say, I've actually just finished one romance book. I'm doing another one right now. Um, and most of the auditions that I do are for fiction. I just find them more interesting. I've done nonfiction. I've done like a self-help parenting book. I've done like a weight loss book. And so there, and those can be interesting too. There's less prep work that needs to go into those because you're just reading it. I mean, of course, you want to read it and make sure it makes sense and have inflection and make it interesting for people. Um, but I think that maybe like the satisfaction that you get after really sort of nailing the feeling of a like really exciting scene is yeah, obviously different than talking about aqueous solutions and
Yeah, I
but
mean,
I don't.
it makes me think about, just my past. I worked in tech for a little bit, but
Mhm.
that somehow led back to music and teaching. And so if I were to compare, teaching a student and them getting some new skills, them learning something, if I compare that to, a typical day at my tech job, I mean, forget about it. There's no,
Yeah, that you
you
can't.
know,
They're both valuable. You can't like they're not.
yeah,
There's not one is not inherently better, but one feels very different than the other one, and they both have their place. But yeah, like being able to get that like feedback, like visceral feedback from somebody who has been working with you closely and you've influenced them and they've influenced you, and that's just like it's like you don't really get that, when you're, you know, catering to your shareholders and things
Yeah,
like
you
that.
don't that's not something that you're coming across really in, you know, a quote regular job, a corporate job.
No, no, typically not. I mean, I'm sure there are exceptions. I personally have, you know, not worked at a job where the mission would be like, you know, my deepest passion. Of course, you know, I cared about the things that we were working on. We were always doing good things. I couldn't say, but I can't say that, you know, it's my passion to, you know, work on emergency dispatch software. It's just not, and it's okay. Like, I don't need it to be. I don't think they needed me to be that way either. But I think that's why I was starting to get burned out on support, is because it wasn't like the feedback. You know, I was, you know, having the feedback was good, like with my employees, but like the actual work was getting a little bit of a slog. So I got a lot more out of doing learning and development, because you were helping people rather than like your stakeholders. But this is also why those things get cut first,
Right.
because they're cost centers.
Right, right.
So yeah, but yeah, it's really and this is actually something that struggle is a strong word, but it's something that is hard when I'm in my, we'll call it a booth, when I'm recording. But I just, you know, I sit here by myself and I'm like emoting and I'm like getting all worked up,
Yeah.
but it's not the same as like live performance. There's no feedback from an audience. And I think that's something that I have been, it's been a challenge for me. Is like, I always did live stage, live performance, other people with me, you know, lots of performers like working together, or in like, you know, just a few, or even just by myself. But then you get the feedback loop from the audience. And it's like, and Brian, I'm sure you've had this too, where if you're playing for a kind of dead audience, it's just like, you just don't feel
That's
as good.
terrible.
Even if you like
No,
nailed every single, no, it's just not.
it's
But
awful. I
you
mean,
could you could have your worst actual performance, but if the audience is so into it, you don't care. It doesn't matter.
yeah,
And that's
when I was younger, I had one experience where the band I was playing with, we weren't really that popular. We were playing our last show and literally there was no one there to watch us. We still played,
oh
you
yeah.
know, we still played. I think we had a friend that was doing merch or something, so they were to the side, but
Yeah,
no, it's not enjoyable.
no. Um and the performances I remember the most are not where I did the most technically perfect or had the most amazing, uh yeah, technical, but like, it was the ones where I felt like I gave the most, and that the audience felt that and gave back. And it's very much a conversation. Even if you're not like specifically talking, it could be a huge audience. Um
Were you
uh,
doing, plays?
I did a couple of plays when I got to New York, but mostly I focused on, um well, and it's kind of weird. So when you're doing opera, yeah, most of opera that you're doing is sung all of the time, but not always. If you're doing like operetta, like Gilbert and Sullivan, there's a lot of dialogue that happens, or there's, you know, if it's like, usually it's a comedy kind of thing. So
Yeah,
I did do a lot of dialogue in operas, um, but they weren't plays
okay.
necessarily, but they were I don't know if that makes sense. But
No,
so I did
yeah.
do some, and you did, you know, of course I, you know, did, there was all sorts of uh dialogue in, you know, musical theater, or, you know, we'd scenes and here and there. But yeah, being able to uh this is I was actually thinking about this the other earlier today too, is um the pacing when you're acting for in an opera, when it's not dialogue, when you're like singing, is very, very long compared to if you're just saying something. So let's say like, all right, if I said you complete me, or how long did that take me? 1, 2 seconds. But if I had to sing a whole aria about you complete me, it's going to take, just even saying that in a musical way, unless it's like a really fast song, it's going to take 10, 15, it's going to take 10 times longer. And so you have to have this weird sort of sustained type of acting that doesn't make sense when you're just saying dialogue. So that's another challenge that I've come across too in certain aspects. Not as much because of course I did do a lot of acting
Right.
as part of my career. Um, but I was thinking about like it's hard to act for 10 seconds when you're saying I love you. Like nobody's doing that. No, that's not a real thing that people do.
Yeah, no,
So it's very
it
strange.
sounds quite difficult.
Yeah. Uh yeah, so it's it's hard to it's hard to compare. But yeah, I've been really enjoying doing the voiceover work. I keep getting work, so I guess it's going well.
There you go.
So can you tell us about some of your favorite performances?
Oh my gosh. For when like for opera, um, or just
Voiceover.
for voiceovers. Okay. So I've really only been doing voiceovers. I think I got my first gig in January this year. So I don't have a whole lot to talk about, but yes, I actually just finished an audiobook that was so fun. It was actually a duet. But I don't actually talk to the other person at all. So there's a couple of different types of books, audio book styles. So one is just one narrator and they just read the whole book. One is called dual narration, where this is usually happens in romance novels, where the female point of view chapters will be read by the female, all the parts though. So like all the male parts, all of the female parts, and the narrator will all be the female for her point of view chapters. And the male ones will be read. The male point of view chapters are read by by a male narrator or a different narrator, whoever is the other person. But they read all of the parts. In a duet narration, they read the narration and like, so I would read the female point of view narration and the female parts for my chapters, but the other narrator would read the lines for all of the male characters. So while I was recording, I had to skip lines that he would say. And then the author is going to stitch it all together. So I'm really excited to hear it once it's all done. But it was a really cute little story, and there was a lot of emotion in it, and I got to like do crying, and it was also very silly. I got to like scream like a witch. It's like you know, like
Nice.
it's just such a fun thing to do. Uh, like, and that's, you know, sort of one of the fun things. And I also had to do a Yorkshire accent, which I didn't know when I took I knew I had to do a British accent, but I thought it was going to be all like radio BBC, which I can do. That's fine.
Right.
Um, and she's like, yes, all of these parts are going to be Yorkshire. I'm like, okay, I'll do my best. And I feel like I did okay. You know, I won't say that I don't list that on my resume as, you know, a skill that I could do natively, but I managed, and that was really fun to play around. So I would like go around my house and try to say uh talk to my kids or, you know, my cats or whatever. I was trying to narrate my life basically in a Yorkshire accent for a while. But and now I don't want to do it because I'm a little self-conscious. But but just being able to like walk around the house and uh you know, be silly with your voice is kind of fun. It's fun reading children's books. That's another fun thing about this is like now every time I read books to my kindergartner, I do really silly voices for everything, and she gets a very big kick out of it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, it's just practice, you know. I just
Right.
everybody's got a very silly different voice, and being able to make those choices, even if I'm not changing my voice, but like being able to make a different character with my same pitch and everything like that is it's a good practice. And then it was also I think the other like I'll go with a nonfiction sort of non-audio book um, job that I really enjoyed as well was I narrated an online sort of an overview for an online exhibit for the Smithsonian for the American Museum of History at the Smithsonian Institute, and I got to meet the curators of this exhibit, and it was
Oh, nice.
for the, because we did a live like a live directed session. So we, join a call, and I read all of the lines that they had, and they could give me immediate feedback, and we just be done with it.
Yeah.
But it was for the Museum of Menstruation, which is it's like a real, I know, it's like I did not know that that was a thing, but it was they have a whole like historical exhibit online of the history of like menstrual products and women dealing with their periods, and it's just like that was very cool to be able to be part of that and like highlight that. It's like I can even tell from your face, you're just like, that's a thing. Yes, it is. And I just think that that's very, I really enjoyed being able to be a part of that. And I don't know when that's coming out either. There is a lot of content that like for, governmental institutions that have a lot of red tape to go through. But so hopefully that'll be up at some point. And yeah, that was really fun. It was like getting to meet these like museum curators for American history. It was very cool. So I think those were probably the two that have stuck out in my head most recently.
That's really awesome that you've been able to work at your passion and now you're being paid for it.
Yes, yes.
It's quite unique because a lot of people try to do the whole creative bit, but most people, to be honest, most people don't succeed at it because it is really hard. It's like you said, it's your own business. You have to do your
Yeah.
your own marketing, your own advertising.
Mhm. It it is a lot, and I think that is where some people like you need support. Like I have support. My husband is an engineer, um, and so we're able to sort of financially have me not working. It's a lot tighter than it used to be. Like I made a lot more than I do now at voiceovers, at least for now, like as I'm building this up. And there's also a lot of expenses that come in. Like I'm paying for a website that I can barely update it. I don't really have a lot of time to work on it. That's like another thing. It's like time is really valuable. And if I have a job, I'm going to work on that and not creating an Instagram post. Like I have an Instagram account and I haven't made one post.
Yeah.
This like I'm like, oh, I need to work on that. And like microphones. I didn't know what I'm doing with microphones. I actually just got this one, and it's more of a podcast microphone. Most voiceover artists may not use. This is like the very common, like that Shure SM7B. And then I have like a cloud lifter, and I have like the audio interface. And I'm just like learning all this is, but also I'm a nerd with this stuff, and I love learning about that stuff. But I got this particular microphone after my other microphone. It was a little on the cheap side, but my room, like you have to like you have a treated space. So I've got
Yeah.
like stuff all over my windows. I don't have an actual booth. I'm like got curtains around me. I've got all sorts of stuff. And this particular microphone is very forgiving in a space that's not perfectly treated and not perfectly isolated. So it's, sort of the trade-off. And it was still really expensive. And we have like all of the software. I use a DAW, which is digital audio workstation, and that's $25 a month. I use Adobe Audition. And I bought plugins so that I can like process and clean up my audio. And that was another $400. It was like I have support. And this is something that I think people, especially and what I noticed when I was, in the classical music world, is that the people who didn't have to have second jobs tended to be more successful because they could just work on they could practice. They
Yeah.
could take
They have the
coachings. Like
time.
coachings are very expensive. You're working with extra teachers. Like you pay to network basically. And I think that's true in most industries, really. If you're going to a conference, you're paying money to go to that conference. If if you have an executive coach, you're paying that executive coach. It's no different in the creative world of any kind. So you have to pay that money. And if you don't have it, you just sort of have to hope for the best. And I think that's where I was a lot, especially when I was singing. It was just I like my parents didn't have a ton of money, and so they gave me what they could. They were always very generous, but I I couldn't, not work. I had to work. I couldn't take
Yeah.
a coaching with 3 different teachers every week. I couldn't, you know, I couldn't fly to all of the auditions that I wanted to. Um, so that was it's tough when you don't have the support, and I'm lucky now that I do have that support. I was able to work and, build up a little bit of a cushion. My husband's there, and so I could focus only on that. Um, and I don't think everybody has that. And I like, I can I'm I'm old now. I would say I'm kinda old. Um, and I can and I kind of know how the world works in terms of being able to, um, what makes sense to invest in and what doesn't. And, I think that, if I was, 20 years ago and I was just coming out of college or something, I don't know if I would have the same experience. It's kind of an interesting thing. I don't think we support young artists particularly well. We always think, "Oh, well, you're lazy, you should work." Well, they are working, but sometimes
Right.
you don't get paid for that work, but you still have
Right.
to do that work. And, yeah, I'm old enough now that I can buy a new microphone and a new audio interface and, new software plugins, but, like, I couldn't I don't if you're, coming straight out of college, you're not necessarily able to do that. So, I always wish in every industry there would be more support for younger people without the layer of saying, "Oh, you're being lazy because 'cause you're not
Yeah.
making money." Well, thinking takes a lot of work.
So,
Absolutely.
so given that money is limited, where do you think is most important for somebody who's just coming in to allocate the money? Is it more so on equipment or coaching?
Oh gosh. Oh, coaching. 100%. 100%. There's gonna be, like, a little from column A, a little from column B. There I Unless they already have a background in performance, and even if they do like I did, but I didn't perform for 10 years, so I've have a coach that I've worked with occasionally, and it was really hard to sort of, like, get my chops back up a little bit, if that makes any sense. Um, and if you want to get into voiceovers or, I mean, acting, I think a lot of people like to think, like, especially if you have a nice voice, and a lot of people have really nice voices, but they don't know how to act. It can one, just technically, it can be very tiring to sit like, today, I sat and recorded audiobooks and auditions from 8 o'clock this morning until about 30 minutes before I came on this show, maybe with a break here and there for, like, lunch and dinner, but that's about it. Like, I basically talked into my microphone for 8 full hours today,
Wow.
and it's tiring. I also had to do, like, for one of this audiobook, I'm, like, doing a voice, and it's really tiring. It's like, he's he's kinda, like, down here, and it was I can't do it for that long. I gotta keep stopping. Um, and so I think, yes, definitely the coaching. I think individual coaching can be very expensive, so, like, finding even if it's, like, someone you trust, that kind of knows the industry or, like, can give, a good opinion, even if it's just like, "Hey, here's the script, here's my recording, what do you think?" And they can give you some feedback,
Right.
and, like, or finding ways to, get that type of feedback that isn't like an individual one-on-one coaching and you have to spend, 200 $250. Um, there's all sorts of improv classes. Improv is wonderful, I think. If you've never done it before, it really gets you out of your comfort zone, so you're prepared to be like, it feels very weird acting. Like, if you've never done it before, you're just like, "Oh, people are looking at me." Yes, they are. They want you to be weird, please.
Yeah. Right, right.
So, like, finding those opportunities that might not cost as much, or, if somebody's willing to give you 30 minutes or, do something asynchronously with feedback, I think you can't you can't really hear yourself objectively, especially at first. Like, I think I can do
100%. Yeah,
yeah, like,
100%.
I think I can do an okay job on my performances, um, on for n now, but I have to, like, take a break, and at a certain point, you just stop hearing it, and you can't really like, does that sound weird? I don't know, I've listened to it, like, 87 times now, and it just all yes, it sounds weird, I don't know what it sounds like anymore, and so you have to have someone else who isn't you to listen to it or listen to you or, um, like, if you have trouble breathing, not trouble breathing, but if you don't know how to support your voice or if you're, like, running out of breath on phrases or if you have to take a breath all the time or if you take really noisy breaths, like, you don't wanna have no breaths. Usually, like, if you're doing an audiobook, you have to leave some breaths in or it sounds, like, robotic. Um, but if you're taking, like nobody wants to hear that either, and you don't wanna go through and
Yeah.
edit every breath out. Oh my god, it takes forever.
Right, right.
I think that was the hardest thing too about voiceovers. If you're gonna go into voiceovers, especially if you're earlier on, learn how to use the DAW and to, like, do some audio editing. Because I 100% I still I'm much better now, but I that is not a thing that I learned ever how to do. That was brand new to me. And I'm lucky that I am good at software, but I don't think that's always the case for a lot of people.
Right.
It was still very difficult for me to be like, "I don't know what this means. What does dither mean?" I still don't know. I don't use it. I try not to do a lot of processing, um, with my audio. It should just be your voice. So I think that even if you're just there's free software, there's, free, uh, options for you. So I think that's if you're first coming up and starting, I think that's probably the way you go. I would say spend the money on coaching or like acting, like technique. That's probably where you would start. If I had to pick one, that would be the one I would do. You can find very high quality, inexpensive microphones. You don't need to buy the XLRs at first. You can just do a USB, especially when you're starting. It's okay.
Yeah.
But I didn't because I was the best one. I don't know why. I didn't take my own advice. Learn from me. Don't do what
Yeah,
I did.
right.
So, like, in terms of coaching, where exactly should people be finding these coaches? Like, what are they looking for in a coach that's relevant towards making them successful in this business?
Um, that's a great question. I don't know if I'm even qualified to answer that because everybody is going to be very different. Like, so I have my voice that I have right now. Um, I would say that like what is your wheelhouse? Do you have a character voice? Are you doing a lot of animation? You're not going to take the same coach that I do. There's all sorts of coaches you can find. YouTube videos. I have learned so much from YouTube videos. Um, Either from performance side or how to create new voices or do audio editing. um, I found my coach through a studio called Edge Studio. They do their recording studio and they work with one of the platforms that I'm on that does free webinars. That's another um, uh, way to get feedback. Like you can go to these free webinars. They offer them once in a while if you're a member on this platform. And if you get picked to read, the producer will like go through your um, your audition where you're like 2 lines or whatever, and it's fascinating, like, hearing people or hearing the feedback, and you're like, "Oh gosh, I would never have thought of that." Or, "Oh, this is because you can hear what that's what the producer is looking at." And then there was one free thing that you could sign up for 15 minutes with the guy that owns this studio, and he was like, "I can't believe you got a job. Your space sounds terrible. Put some more blankets on the ceiling. Also, go talk to Danielle. She's great. She's gonna coach you." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, sounds good."
Wow.
So like, I just
Okay.
she was wonderful, and so I've had her.
Yeah.
Her name's Danielle Quisenberry, and she's awesome. So I
Nice.
mean, he was obviously much nicer than that, but then I went back and listened. And I was like, "Oh God, he was right." He's like, that was probably yeah, it was like it was probably 8 months ago at this point.
And,
Um,
to get that objective, feedback, that objective view is so important, especially, like, with music For
Mhm.
instance, even not showing someone else, but even showing myself, if I record a video on Saturday, I'm not
Mhm.
necessarily going to decide on what 60 seconds am I going to clip out for
Yeah.
Instagram and TikTok. Sometimes I'll wait a whole day and then
Yeah.
listen to the takes fresh. And then I'll be like, oh, wow, like I was about to delete this one, but this is
Mhm.
actually really good. And I can't tell you
Exactly.
how many times that's happened. So now I try to not delete anything and I try to do
Mhm.
just one take per
Yeah.
song. So you're really getting the feeling all
Interesting.
in that one take. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very similar when you're doing an audiobook. So you record a chapter, or I try to record at least an hour at a time before I go back and edit it. Um, I don't like to do all of the recording and then go back, because then I find that the performance may not be as consistent. So I like to kind of check back in, but I can't edit it the same day I record it. It's just not, it's a bad choice. So, you record, your, like the chapter I did today, I did a chapter and a half today, but like I ended up doing about an hour and a half worth of um audiobook today. But I'm not going to edit that until Monday or Tuesday next week, because I just can't, like, and then I'll go, because I right now all of it's terrible because it's too fresh. um, so then I can go back
Yeah.
and listen to it, and, like, if I made any, mistakes, or if there was any performance stuff, or there's spacing or something that sounds weird, I can do a pickup. But yeah, like, you can't be objective when it's that fresh, like, especially if you're being ready. I feel like most performers are very critical of their own performances,
Oh,
and
yes.
so you can't be objective
Yeah.
about it when it's that soon. So
For
I'm
some
very much
reason, yeah,
with
for
that.
some reason with performance, that tends to be the case, huh?
Maybe it's something with basically all you do for, your entire career is get criticism. I mean, people tell you you're good too, but it happens a lot less often, because you can only get better when you get feedback, and
Well,
that's
that's the funny thing with music, everyone listens to music, so everyone
mhm,
all of a sudden is a critic of you, and it's
yeah,
like, you're not a professional, why am I listening to you? But
yeah,
that common ear is also good to know, okay, are they liking this? Is this
yeah.
something that has mass appeal? I think that's, an important question.
Well, and it is an important question, but not you also have to remember, not everyone is going to like it. That's not possible. It's never Someone is always going to hate what you're doing, and whether or not you're okay with it, you have to accept that that's what's gonna happen.
Right.
And this is where, you were asking about, um, how do you find a coach? And honestly, it's kind of trial and error. Like, you can go to some of these studios, or you can, there's so um, one of the platforms I'm on is voices.com. That's a big one, especially for starting people, or people who are, it's just it's fairly consistent work. You have to do a lot of auditions, just like anything. It's no different than when I was in the opera world. So, but they offer a lot of other benefits with your membership. So, like, these webinars, and these, like, networking, and practice sessions, and all sorts of, like, studio setup help. Um, so, if you get with a coach, so, like, let's say, I was told to work with coach XYZ, and I had a session, and I was like, I don't know about that. And you can just not go back to that person.
Yeah.
You can just find someone else. And, eventually maybe you find somebody on YouTube. A lot of the YouTube uh, content creators do coaching. I've thought about contacting one or two of those, just being like, I really dig what this guy is saying. He's done a lot of audiobooks, and I love his work. Um, I would like to work on XYZ with this guy. But I haven't done that yet. But there's so many people, even if it's honestly, even if it's just like, so another thing that you can do is you find other voice actors and be like, hey, can we trade feedback?
Oh, yeah,
There's no
that's great.
like, so that's what I'm doing with, I'm doing an audiobook right now with another voice actor, and he and I have just been sending um sending our sides to each other and like, with the script and or like we'll audition together for if you're on so ACX is Audible. It's like where you audition for Audible books, some of them. And so a lot of the books, a lot of the auditions there are for duet, and you have to submit together. So you already have to know somebody, which is very hard when you're sitting in a booth by yourself all day. So if
Right.
you end up doing with a gig with somebody, now he and I have been submitting auditions together, and we'll read the sides, send each other um, the audio, and be like, oh, here I thought you could like, oh, I like that, or oh, maybe like I couldn't really understand that word, or it was like kind of smooshed, or I'm like, oh, I felt you missed an opportunity to like make this joke or something like that. So there's a lot of like, and that's just free. Like we're just helping each other out. But that's like really valuable too. It's just hard to find people, I think, especially in this industry where, or at least for me, because I'm new, I'm new at this.
Yeah.
But I know lots of other actors. So if I like, I could, contact some of my like friends from my previous performance, be like, hey, can you listen to this? And they'd be like, yeah, sure. So
Yeah.
it's like
I
I
mean,
have a slight advantage there. But
I would love to, what is your perspective on jazz music? Being an opera singer, a former opera singer.
my perspective on it,
Yes.
jazz is great. Yeah, I like rap. I like K-pop. I love music. Music is great. I
Yeah.
actually would say that the music I don't listen to ever is opera.
Oh, that's
So
funny.
it's
That's
not what I would listen to. Um, yeah, people are like, "Oh, do you go to the opera all the time?" I'm like, "Not if I don't know somebody in the show."
not at all.
No, no, it's not a thing that I would do. It's a very weird, and I think this is also why I got a little burned out on it. It's just I didn't love it. I liked it. I liked some of the shows that I did a lot. I loved the people that I worked with. I loved the the companies and all of that. But actual opera, only fine for me. So yeah, jazz is wonderful. Who's that guy? Jacob Collier. I think he's just crazy. That's crazy to me. Do you know who that is?
Oh, what's his name again?
Jacob Collier, I think is his name. He's a
Is he more modern?
yeah, so he's like a younger guy. I think he does singing, and he's got the craziest like pitch sense that I have ever seen in my life. Does a ton of theory. I watch a lot of music theory nerdy videos as well.
Oh, wow.
Um, um, but he does a lot of really close harmony and you could go look for him. It is Jacob Collier, and he writes a lot of music as well, and it's very jazzy. But yeah, the actual genre of jazz, I I enjoy it. I don't know a lot about it. I love it when it's like you know I used to live in when I lived in Chicago. I used to live by the Green Mill, so I would go to the Green Mill all the time and see the live jazz. It was great.
Awesome. So you have a little bit of a background in that.
uh I don't know if background is the right word because
Well,
I didn't
background
ever do it
knowledge, let's
myself.
say.
Well, background knowledge, sure. I mean, of course, you have to like
Yeah.
learn about it in music school. I have 2 music degrees, so of course I learned a lot about jazz, but I've
Right.
not actually performed a lot of jazz outside of like choral works that would be, considered sort of jazz pieces, like jazz a cappella pieces, which is not, I think, what most people think of when they think of jazz. But
Yeah, I mean, my favorite artist is probably, Bill Evans from the Bill Evans Trio. He was, a piano player who played with Miles Davis pretty early on,
oh, okay,
and
okay,
so he's known from that basically, because anyone that plays with Miles Davis is clearly very good. You can
yeah,
just
yeah,
assume.
obviously,
Just
yeah,
assume, yeah.
yeah. No, I always like I appreciate most music. Like I love live performance. I think that is like going to the like I love going to the symphony. Like if they're going to the Phil, oh my gosh, it's so awesome. Like whatever they're playing, I don't care. But seeing people like play together and seeing especially if you're a really good conductor, is really really awesome. It's just like there's like just it's that feedback. It's that feedback that I like. That's the thing I think I miss about being like performing on stage is that sort of excitement that you get as a live performer, and you can still get that as an audience member. So it's kind of
Yeah,
nice.
I mean, there's nothing like that. Performing in front of a large audience, it's hard to describe to someone what
Yeah,
that what that
yeah,
feeling is actually like.
But
for
yeah,
sure.
we're getting to the top of the hour. Before we get out of here, where can our audience find you? And did you want to leave them with any closing thoughts?
Oh my gosh, closing thoughts. I don't know. I do have a website. It's greervoiceovers.com, Greer voiceovers.com. And I am, if you are needing a voiceover, hit me up. I do pretty much everything. And closing thoughts, I think that just we talked a lot about my sort of seemingly random career, and I think that it's for a long time I felt um, awkward or embarrassed about my background being so what people might consider disjointed, and I think that now I've made a lot of peace with that, and I would encourage people like if you're desperately unhappy in what you're doing, you can do something else. Even, I'm full disclosure, I'm 43. And so last year I changed careers for the like fourth time. And it's
Wow.
fine. It's fine. It's going like you can do
Yeah.
it. You can do it. So I think that just like encouragement and um, you know, is it hard? Of course, but um is it frustrating sometimes? Yes, obviously. That's going to be work, and if if you're if you feel if it's something that's calling to you, then you should do it, and doesn't matter really where you're at, as long as it, can make sense,
Yeah,
logistically for
and you're a great example of that.
you. Well, I try.
But yeah, no, we definitely appreciate you for coming on to the show and
Thank
sharing your
you.
wisdom and your stories. And whenever you want to come back, we can just bring you back. But we also like to thank everybody